So, hello everyone. Um, Thanks for sticking around. We're live now. With me are Leanna and Ian. My name is Frank. And first of all, thank you for staying that late. I know that for those people that are not in our time zone, it's really late at night. So I appreciate the interest in the session. And we have half an hour, and we're going to try to answer some of your questions that you posted on the Etherpad, and Ian is going to start.
So the first question is, how many of the articles created by students were deleted afterwards? I don't have a firm answer on that, but I have a rough sense. I get notifications when student work is nominated for deletion or prodded, so it's not quite the same as are deleted, and it's not only the articles that students worked on. But based on that and the number of articles that students touch in a term, it is, I'd say, in the 1% range. Not a lot, but that sort of range.
Okay, thanks, Ian. I'm Leanna Davis. I will take the next couple of questions that are on the Etherpad here. But those of you who haven't added questions to the Etherpad, please feel free to do so, and the three of us will get to the answers of them. The next question that we have is, what are the metrics for created content? So Wiki Education measures a handful of metrics around the content that we do. I think there is always, of course, room for improvement on metrics, but the main metrics that we use is number of words added, which measures the quantity of information that is added by our student editors to the projects, as well as the number of articles that they are actually editing. So looking at how many different articles on how many different topics that the participants in our programs touch. And then we also look at kind of as a rough measure of what we call structural completeness, which is a sort of stand-in for quality with a recognition that it's not a perfect measure of quality, is looking at how many points change difference there are for in the ORs, the object revision scoring, from when the student began working on it to when the student finished working on it, or program participant in our Scholars and Scientists program. And so we look at how many articles have at least a 10-point change in quality from start to finish on those. And so that gives us kind of a rough metric of how much work and how much the student kind of contributed to the overall structural completeness of the article. And so those are kind of the three main metrics we use. Of course, we also look at the page views of how many people are reading the work that comes in, as a general metric of the impact that that the work we did through our programs had on the various projects. The next question that we have here is Wiki Education still restricted to North America? So this has some nuance to it. So let me try to answer this question as clearly as I can. So for our student program, which is where university students edit Wikipedia as part of the coursework in their program, we are sort of restricted to the United States and Canada. So what we tend to do is support universities that are geographically located within the boundaries of the United States and Canada. However, we do make an exemption for American universities abroad. So there are a host of institutions that are accredited arms of US universities that are in different countries around the world. And oftentimes they share faculty with their host institution in the United States. And so we do support a handful of courses that are happening geographically outside the United States in these American universities that are geographically outside the United States. In our Scholars and Scientists program, however, we welcome participants from all over the globe. And in fact, we have had participants from all over the globe participating in our Wikipedia and Wikidata editing courses. We've had a number of participants in our Wikidata courses coming from countries all over the world. And with the Wikipedia courses, some of the partner organizations we work with are global in scope. So an example of that is we recently collaborated with the GoGN Network, which is a group of graduate students working in the open education space, and they were working on improving Wikipedia's coverage of open educational resources and the content around that topic area. And those graduate students were from universities all across the globe. And so we are happy to collaborate and connect with participants who are geographically located anywhere. Those courses happen via Zoom and were operating via Zoom prior to the pandemic as well. And so those are a great opportunity for anyone to participate in our programs. The next question here is, do you approach female groups? I'm not quite sure what the specific kind of context for this question is, or what the person who asked it is looking for here. So if you have any additional clarifications you want to add into the Etherpad, if the answer I'm about to give doesn't answer your question, I will attempt again. But the answer is yes, in the sense of we do a lot of collaboration with groups that are specifically focused on addressing inequities of bringing women into spaces. So Jamie in her presentation mentioned the partnership that we have with 500 Women Scientists, for example, which is exclusively a group of students or graduate students or early career scientists who are interested in improving the sort of visibility of women in science. And so that is a group that works with women primarily. And we also work in the student program with a number of faculty who teach at women's colleges where the student body population is also women. Overwhelmingly, the demographics that we have in our programs are significantly more women than men, and have been for since the start of our programmatic work. And so I think, the outreach that we've done and just the general programmatic efforts that we've done have really helped address Wikipedia's gender gap in that sense. And then the next question here is, what does editor retention look like for Wiki Education supported programs? And I think there's another question, or did I miss a question somewhere? So there was another question about editor retention here too. So let me talk a little bit about kind of our approach to retention. So in the student program, one of the things that we have found is that, from our perspective, people are either going to be Wikipedians or they're not. You're sort of, you are somebody for whom you think it is fun to edit a Wikipedia article in your spare time as a volunteer, or that's something that you're just not all that excited about. And when we do surveys of students after the end of the term, we used to ask the question, are you going to keep editing? And overwhelmingly, everyone was like, yes, this was fun. I totally want to keep editing. And then very few of them actually do. And so I think the context that we operate in here is we're giving people the tools to click the edit button and know how to continue engaging with Wikipedia when that moment presents itself. And sort of the data that we see shows that a handful of these students will continue doing that at some point in the future. But the power of the program from the retention perspective really comes in retaining that faculty member who taught them with Wikipedia. So at this point, we have been running our Wikipedia student program for 11 years. And some of the faculty that we have been working with have taught with Wikipedia nearly every term for 11 years and have brought somewhere between 20 and 30 students twice a year to Wikipedia to learn how to edit Wikipedia. And so we find that retaining that one individual faculty member can have an exponential effect on the new contributors and the new content that are coming in through those programs, and is a much more effective means of bringing lots of content into the projects, because you retain that one instructor who is very excited about teaching with Wikipedia. The more times they teach with Wikipedia, the easier it gets, the more they're able to answer their own questions, the better they understand the best practices. And so the long-term faculty can essentially be sort of self-sufficient at running their classes each term and don't require as much of our time to help support them. And the content that they're producing becomes uniformly just excellent from the students that have are writing with an experienced faculty member. And so Wiki Education really approaches that retention question from the how can we retain a very interested faculty member in making sure that they're bringing 20 students every term to improve Wikipedia's coverage of their discipline in order to be successful at that. And the next question is Frank's, and so I will pass it back over to him.
Yes. So, the question is, what does diversity on staff at Wiki Education look like? Are there similar trends in underrepresentation of marginalized communities? And this is really an excellent question, and we've been thinking about that a whole lot. If you want to see what just what we look like, what everybody on staff looks like, we just had an all-staff meeting. I posted one of the images, the newest staff image, into the Etherpad, so you can see us there on the steps of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. And now, if you were like, I mean, we're from the very start, from the very first day, the mission of our organization was tightly linked to diversity, equity, and we're really committed to that. So the simple answer is, if you're running programs that do so much for diversity on Wikipedia, you also want to have a diverse staff. And so we've put a number of policies and practices in place, and these policies and practices are intended to improve staff diversity. So, for example, we write our job descriptions so they don't exclude specific groups of people. You can easily write a job description that it only attracts male applicants, and we're trying to prevent that from happening. The same when it comes to job descriptions, we're also transparent about the pay range. That is really important. We don't ask people for their salary history. We don't want to perpetuate the gender gap in pay. And these are just two examples, and I put more in the Etherpad. Like, for example, we specifically target HBCUs, and we're really trying hard to increase diversity on staff. And the historic numbers, so between 2014, 2021, those are not the numbers for currently the status quo right now. Those are the historic numbers for all time. I think they're more meaningful. I just looked into that, and the numbers are like 54% of the people that we hired since 2014 were female, 29% were non-white, 18% identified in LGBTQ+, and the number that we're not very good is most people on staff have been traditionally younger than 50 years of age, so that is something where we don't perform well. But the other numbers, I think, are for a small organization, you always have to think about that, right? Like, if you have an organization of like 500 people on staff, I think, and we can can go into details why that's the case. I think it's easier to shoot for a certain percentage when it comes to diversity. If you're a very small organization, it's more difficult. But in the end, we're doing a whole lot of things in order to increase staff diversity, and I'm pretty happy about where we are. There's always something that can be done better, of course. I'm also going to take the next question, and that is, how is Wiki Education funded? And historically, we've been funded 100% through grants. And when I talk about grants, I mean institutional grants, grants from organizations like the Hewlett Foundation, Stanton Foundation, Wikimedia Foundation, Moore Foundation, larger foundations that can give grants that are large enough to make our organization survive. Now, a couple of years ago, we saw that at some point you reach you reach a point where you've asked most of those foundations in the United States that might be interested in funding an organization like ours. And at that point we said, hey, we need to diversify a little bit. We need to see what can we do, and so we're not like 100% reliant on large institutional grants. And so one of the things that we came up with was like to create an earned income stream. So what does that mean? Earned income in this case means some of our services are we created a fee-for-service model, and so the Scholars and Scientists courses, and we started that in 2018. So after 4 years of being in operations at Wiki Education, after 4 years, we started this earned income stream, and so far it has developed into being like 10% of our budget. Now, what does that mean? We have a budget of around like $2 million each fiscal year, and so 10% or $200,000 that we generate through earned income, and we're trying really, really hard to increase that number so we're less dependent on these large donations. Large grants. Now, what is the big picture? Again, we could, and I think I said that in my second part of the pre-recorded session already, but I'm, like I can't get tired of saying it again because, like, we're ready to scale. How beautiful is that? Like, how many organizations can just know how to scale? And like the one and only thing that's holding us back from scaling our programs is money. If we got more money, we would bring even more diverse people to Wikipedia. We would be even more successful in creating more content in areas that are underdeveloped. It's simply there's no other explanation at this point in time than we don't have enough money to grow our programs right now, which is kind of a pretty not desperate, but it's kind of it's for me in my position, it's not something that makes me very happy to think about, like, hey, we could scale, but we're not able because we don't have the funds to do that. So now, with that being said, we are kind of moving back to Leanna. Or Leanna, do you want me to take that features of the dashboard question real quickly, sure, and then you do the rest? Okay, cool. So dashboard. Hey, there is a survey up now on Meta, and if you're interested in influencing what kind of features we're going to have, so the question is, what kind of new features are coming to the dashboard? Then please fill out that survey. It's still online. We already got a good number of answers, which we're super happy about, but there's room for more. So you have the chance to get your ideas, see that realized. And so based on the survey that we have on Meta, we're going to build a roadmap. We're going to look for patterns. What are the things that most people desire to have? What are the things that we think we can pull off? with only relatively limited capacity on staff. And then we're going to publish a roadmap. And if you have specific ideas, if there's like, seriously, we're building this for you, for the community. We're so happy. That's like when we started the dashboard, no one thought we would have thousands of people working with it, right? And several 10,000s of program participants on this dashboard. It's really like, it's like almost as if a dream comes true. And so we're building this for you, and we wanted to be the programs and events dashboard, we want it to be as good as it can be. And so if you have a specific thing that you think, hey, this would be a major breakthrough for everybody could use this, right? Please post it. There's a programs and events dashboard page on Meta. Go to the talk page of that page and post it. Here's my idea, right? And then we're gonna look into that. We really want to serve the community. The session title here is, how do we promote knowledge equity? And one of the ways we're promoting knowledge equity is we're giving you a tool where you can run your own programs that promote knowledge equity. That's one of the things that we're doing, and we want to do a good job at that, and that requires your feedback. So if you have ideas, please post them. And with that, I hand it over to Leanna.
Okay, thanks, Frank. And I just added links to both the survey on the dashboard and the talk page on Meta to the Etherpad. So please click through on those and fill them out. You do not need to be a current user of the dashboard to take the survey. We're also interested in getting information from people who don't use it on what would make you use it. So definitely feel free to click through and offer feedback on that one. It looks like I have one more question on the Etherpad. We still have 10 minutes, so if anyone has additional questions, this is a general encouragement to add them to the Etherpad here while I'm answering the last question. If not, we can wrap up a little early. I know it's been a long day of sessions, at least for me, and I'm guessing for many of you too. The last question that we have here says, would focusing on, say, Spanish Wikipedia help attract Latino, Latina, or Latinx editors? I think this is a super interesting question. And, I think certainly, working with diverse language Wikipedias helps attract a more diverse editor base. That being said, Wiki Education's support structure is kind of heavily built around the English Wikipedia in its current state. So we have, for example, our dashboard, and this is true for the programs and events dashboard as well, has a system built in of article alerts in which anything, so Ian mentioned in his answer to the question of how many student articles had been deleted, he was able to say like, hey, this is how many alerts I got, because we have built in a system that's kind of pings us every time an article gets deleted. And that provides an opportunity for those of us on staff to jump in and make sure and participate in those deletion discussions to evaluate like, hey, should this article, was this the student moved the article into the wrong namespace? And so like, obviously this, erroneous move should be deleted. Or is this something where, hey, we need to jump in and explain, like the student needs to add a few more citations to this in order to get the article to stay. And so that kind of understanding of the community and deep integration into the community is something that I think is a hallmark of our program. And it's built into the structures of how the dashboard helps us as staff respond to the concerns that come up. And that is in our current state, we do not have that staff capacity as well on different language Wikipedias. So a handful of our translation classes do work on multiple language Wikipedias, and we have a handful of faculty who have students whose native language is not English, and they encourage the students to write in their native language Wikipedias instead of the English Wikipedia. And so, certainly there is work that happens on other language Wikipedias. There's work that happens in diverse spaces within our programs, but we are not able to provide the same level of kind of support and community engagement that we do on the English Wikipedia in our current status. I think Frank mentioned, one of the current challenges and roadblocks we have to scaling is funding. Could we obviously, with additional funding, build out that capacity in other languages? Yes. And I think that's one of the kind of questions strategically for us as we move forward. What is the right answer to that? And, and where does the funding come in to help that? In general, I feel like, in kind of reflecting on attracting different diverse participants in our programs, I think one of the things that you will see is our breakdown of participants in the student program is very much reflective of the universities that we have participating in, sort of the geographic spread of those. And so universities that have larger populations of Latina, Latinx students will have then generally more students participating in our program just by virtue of what the student body population looks like. So another way we can kind of shift that is how are we targeting outreach to faculty at particular universities. And if we know that particular campuses have a more diverse student body, we can also do more outreach to say, like, hey, if we're looking to bring this particular student body in, we can do more work to build community and build participating faculty at institutions where there are diverse populations of that student body. So I think that's kind of our current plan given the funding situation that we operate in, but certainly expansion out to other language projects is also obviously possible with unlimited funds. That being said, there are certainly education programs happening globally, run by many different affiliates, groups, individual contributors, individual professors that are happening around the world. In one of my other hats, I am the chair of the Wikipedian Education User Group, and we have a session tomorrow, which I would encourage you to check out as well. I'll plug that right now. But we support the work of program leaders around the world who are doing this, and I am a firm believer that having that sort of local community involvement is critical for success of an education program. And so, I wouldn't want to be a American going in and doing something on the Spanish Wikipedia where that is not my native language or my language of expertise. And so anything we did in that would need to involve local communities and would need to be in partnership with local partners. And so I think making sure that we are all ensuring that happens and collaborating with partners locally is kind of, to me, the answer to that question. And I am getting the notification we have 5 more minutes. If anyone has another question, unfortunately, we can't see the Remo chat, so please do put it in the Etherpad if there are other questions that are coming in, and we can answer them. If not, Ian, do you have another comment?
I think that the best thing that we can do really to diversify is to make our resources as available as possible. And that's primarily what the PNE dashboard does. And to share our expertise and to work with other communities, other countries looking to do this kind of work. And, realize that we do much better helping build capacity in the rest of the world. We're not, we're not competing. We're not competitors.
No, that's absolutely true. And one thing, the training modules that we have on Wiki Education's installation of the dashboard that we use, I think you saw some screenshots of it in various people's presentations. We have taken those trainings and we have moved them over to the programs and events dashboard. We've removed the sort of Wiki Education specific stuff, so it doesn't talk about like how you contact Wiki Education staff, but it keeps in the information that's the basics on how to contribute to Wikipedia. And we recently moved over our Wikidata training slides as well. And so now there's the how to contribute to Wikidata as well that are on the programs and events dashboard. And those are also available on Meta, and you can go into Meta and translate any of the text in there for your local language using Translate Wiki, as is typical for all things on Meta. And then so you can, using the typical Translate Wiki interface where we translate things in the movement more broadly, you are able to create those versions of the trainings that we've developed in your local language for use on the Programs and Events dashboard as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to check those out on the Programs and Events dashboard. Is another great way of building out support for education program work globally. Let me just check in here on the Etherpad and see if there's any other comments. I am not seeing any additional questions. So with that, I think we're a couple minutes, like 2 minutes from the end here. So I think we will, hopefully we can wrap up a little early. Let me touch base with our technical support team and just say we're ready to end now. Okay, they're saying yes that we can. All right, so thank you everyone. This has been a lovely day. I've enjoyed many of the sessions I've attended so far today. Well, I've enjoyed all of them. I've attended many sessions today, and it's lovely to see all of you virtually. And I look forward to engaging with you in person in future years at Wikimania. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your interest. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.